Good day, everyone. I'm Olay, and you're listening to Edu Steps, the education podcast designed to guide young people and their families through the intricate journey of academic life. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that's on the minds of many students and parents, FAFSA. We're going to be talking about FAFSA Frenzy, demystifying financial aid. With recent changes and updates, understanding the free application for federal student aid is more crucial than ever. Festus is here with me today. Festus, we're 3 months into 2025. Happy March. What's the biggest change you've noticed in the education landscape so
far? Good afternoon, everybody, or good day. And whenever you're listening to this, I think the biggest changes I'm noticing is just the level of competition. You know, we grew up and public school was it pretty much is the main thing. And now, there's so many different options: charter schools, micro schools, public schools, online learning, and homeschool is now a lot easier to accomplish. So I think it's really challenging for parents, for educators, and for students, because figuring out what option can be the best option can be a big challenge. So.
Last spoken. You almost sound like a parent there, so that's pretty awesome. You hear that? That was a joke. Wait for laughter. No? Okay. And we also have the brilliant Jamar Crawford, who's on the cusp of earning his doctorate. From your academic vantage point, what should families be aware of these days?
They should be aware of getting as much information as possible when it's time to fill out the FAFSA.
Wonderful, wonderful, man. You love to hear it. Absolutely. So, like I said, today we're going to be diving into a crucial issue, FAFSA. Did you guys know that the FAFSA form for the 2024-2025 academic year underwent probably a significant overhaul in decades? Some recent data shows that the new FAFSA changes have expanded the Pell Grant eligibility to an additional 610,000 students from low-income backgrounds. This really underscores the importance of our discussion today, as more families than ever could benefit from understanding these changes. As we navigate 2025, it's crucial to address the complexities of the new FAFSA. The U.S. Department of Education reports that the form now contains only about 36 questions, down from 108 in previous years. This simplification aims to make the process more accessible, but also brings new challenges and opportunities that families need to understand. Remember, as always, if you're feeling overwhelmed by the financial aid process, you're not alone. The new changes are designed to access aid, but they also require a shift in how we approach the application process. Let's dive in and explore effective strategies to navigate the new FAFSA landscape in 2025 and beyond. So just a couple things that I want people to be aware of before we kind of go into our questions. Shorter form. The FAFSA has been significantly shortened to 108 questions from about 36. The student aid index, right? We're no longer under the EFC, or the expected family contribution. We now operate under a student aid index. We have an expanded Pell Grant eligibility. As I mentioned before, more students are now eligible for Pell Grants. Automated tax data transfer with the IRS. So the IRS data retrieval tool is now required for the online FAFSA submissions. And lastly, something that's may seem small, but it's actually very, very important: multiple students in college. The sibling discount has been removed, okay? So before, if you had multiple students in college, it seemed like you had an opportunity to get more financial aid. That may not be the case now, okay? So let's go over a couple of questions, right, that we're gonna kind of use in our discussion today. First question: the sibling discount has been removed. Actually, I want to think. I just want to get a general synopsis from everyone. What are your thoughts overall on those changes that I kind of just went over? Because, we have practical experience ourselves doing the FAFSA, but now, we're in the stage of dissemination giving this information out. What are your views just from the outside, just at first glance at these changes? What are some of your thoughts there?
I think, this is a step in the right direction. I think so often people just fear change, that it's like anything, oh, it's bad, and I think, when people look at some of these changes, oftentimes the current administration gets blamed for the previous administration and vice versa. And so these changes were put in under President Biden's term to try to expand FAFSA. And so just as you shared when you're going over the statistics, almost 500,000 more people are going to now get coverage. So it might hurt some individuals, but it's expanding to a lot more individuals. So, and the thing is, truth be told, unless you're like right in the middle of it, meaning you're a sophomore or maybe a freshman or sophomore when these changes took effect, you're the only one who's going to know. You know what I'm saying? Like a person who's an incoming student who never did the FAFSA, they're not going to know. And a person who's a graduating senior, maybe they're going to know. Maybe they're going to have some changes there. But other than that, it's not really going to. I don't think it's going to have that major of an effect.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think that there's never a perfect solution with any new change. There's always a cause and an effect. And so unfortunately for this change, it would affect the families of multiple children, but it does offer Pell Grants to other students as Festus touched on. I think that if we look at this as a way of, if I'm a family and I have multiple students or multiple children that are planning to go to college, let's now be, what is the word I'm looking for? Intentional. Let's be very intentional. Let's be mindful when we're in schooling. Okay, I might not get that particular discount because I have multiple children, but I can move with intention and make informed decisions. Okay, maybe this particular school student I have is a scholar, so maybe we can look for academic scholarships. Maybe this particular student has other gifts and talents that schools or other institutions might find benefit their program. Let me start looking into that. So it's no longer just filling out the FAFSA because I have multiple children. Yes, they're good. No, let's now be more intentional, seek the information so we can make informed decisions that will affect our children.
Absolutely. Oh, did you have something else, Rob? I agree 100%. I think from the outside looking in, my first thought was, man, they're streamlining this. You're going to be able to complete that thing a lot faster, right? Going from 108 questions to 36 questions, a very seamless process. Because I remember when I would do the FAFSA, I would stop around question 59, 60 because I was waiting on someone to get something for me, or I had to go do this, I had to go do that. Just imagine stopping at question 18 and you only have 18 more questions to go. So that definitely makes it a lot smoother. But I think when we think about who
Hey, Festus is.
Go ahead.
All right. So just having those opportunities to go from 108 to 36 questions just makes that process a lot more quicker. It's a much more seamless process for families. As I said, as you're talking about first generation non-traditional minority students, there's still a lot of ignorance. There's still a lot of things you may be privy to, may not be understanding. Our goal is to take a lot of those technical things to make them much more easier to comprehend, bite-sized pieces for for families out there, right?
Hey, LYS fam. It's Olay once again. These days, many families are busy but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
And I think at the end of this conversation, it's really going to show the importance of where we lie in this, in this time, and why LYS is so important. Okay. So looking forward to that great conversation. So first question I want to get into, the sibling discount has been removed. What strategies can families with multiple college students use to manage this change? Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, I'll give you a quick example of what's going to happen here. Middle income families are likely to be the hardest hit by this change. For example, a student with one sibling in college from a household making around $70,000 a year may receive approximately $2,000 less in annual Pell Grant funding under the formula, right? So what strategies can families with multiple college students use to manage this change?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is looking at the institutions that you're going to. For example, if you can get your child into an early college, high school, or a dual credit program, that would be one of the number one things I would do right off the top, because by getting them in that early college, high school, or getting them in that dual credit program, you're getting college credit while you're in high school. And so every class you take could be reducing their tuition by anywhere from, $500 to $2,000 to $5,000, depending on what institution they go to next. And understanding the career that your child's going into, because a lot of people go to college just for going to college sake, which I'm all for higher learning. I'm all for higher learning, but sometimes you don't really need a degree just for a degree's sake. You see what I'm saying? If you want to be in the environment, which again, I think that's one of the things that colleges are going to offer, because people say, oh no, we need to get rid of colleges. There's no need for college. I think that's kind of foolish, right? I think the reality is, if you were to say, I want to replace college with something else, what would you replace it with? Probably something just like a college, because if you're in a mastermind group, or you're in some kind of group, do they have libraries? Do they have access to internet? Do they have, spaces to study? Those different types of things that the college campus provides. Now, I would say, again, the type of college you go to matters greatly, because are you going for academics, or are you going for all the other bells and whistles? And so, there's some people who they want to go to the college with a big football team and a big basketball team and this big program and that big program, that don't necessarily contribute to the academics, but they can contribute to the student life on campus. And that is more expensive. There are schools that are available that don't have all of those things, that are well-accredited schools that provide quality education, and that can lower your tuition bill. So those are some you might want to consider.
Lower that tuition bill. I love it. Absolutely, man. Great points there. Yeah. Soon to be.
I agree exactly with what Festus just suggested, looking at the high schools and see which high schools have dual credit or the early college programs. As a teacher who taught those courses on those campuses, it really benefits the students, and it definitely does lower the cost of, your education if that's what they're trying to do, go to college. So I feel like that was a great gem you just gave, Festus.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, bro.
Hey, LYS fam. It's Olay. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that even though the cost of college can be daunting, the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook can assist you in realizing your dreams. You can identify and apply for scholarships using the information, advice, and resources in our comprehensive guide. Also, we've provided a template for a successful scholarship essay to help you stand out from the crowd. Don't allow student loan debt to control you. Get your copy of the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook right away to take charge of your destiny. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to that fire conversation.
Yeah, so I think seeking additional scholarships and grants throughout the year, looking into institutional aid options as colleges may be adjusting their own aid packages to compensate for the federal changes. Make sure you're always in contact with your financial aid department at the school. I think that is another great nugget that actually Festus wrote about in the scholarship guidebook. Festus, you remember when you talked about almost when I read it, it sounded like you were saying, go to the financial aid office like you go to the student center. Get to know them by name, make them your friend. You get a little extra cookie or something, give them the cookie. You want to go a little bit into that?
100%. Back in my day, Sonny. But in reality, back in the day when I was in school, they just had a binder with the scholarships. You know what I'm saying? And because they had a binder with the scholarships, they would just put a new sheet of paper in there when the scholarships came in. So I used to just go like once a week, just flip through the binder, anything new, okay, cool, and then let me keep it moving. And so because these scholarships weren't really published in a major way, you had to stay on top of it, and they kind of got to a point where the binder over there, and they would just do, kind of keep doing their thing. And so, you never know when funding becomes available, because again, if you're just the average student and you're just going in at the beginning of the semester like everybody else, when it's the busiest time of the year, a month before school starts, and maybe a month before, what do they call it? What's that called, Crawford? The final enrollment deal. What y'all call that?
The last day to drop. That's what I remember it as.
It's the official day roster.
Yeah, okay, there you go. The official day roster.
ODR.
Yeah. So if you're going just between those times, that's pretty much their busiest time, because people are filling out their FAFSAs. They're coming and turning in paperwork that they're missing. Some people are, who are kind of, behind schedule. They're trying to get stuff done. But after that period, now you got the rest of the semester where those people really, they don't have as much to do. You know what I mean? And so that's the time to really get in there and get good information.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I was thinking about as well is, I'm trying to look at my notes here. So some people may think that, I remember one day I was working in a school and I was visiting some of the kids, and it was a student, and she was saying that since she had two siblings that were born in another country and she was born in America, that there was more pressure on her to succeed. And I thought about that, and I thought about the fact that most families that are, middle to lower class, they usually have more kids, right? And so how does this affect those families? One of the things that I want us to be aware of is a lot of these, well, I think pretty much all these changes we're going to be talking about were all done as part of the FAFSA Simplification Act, right? Which aim to streamline the financial aid process. And so just a reminder that it does go back to that point of, yes, it was made to make things easier, but just as you can imagine from a legislative standpoint, things have to be done here so you can kind of allow for things to happen, on the other side. And so just want to make that clear so we understand the difference there. Next, so more students are now eligible for Pell Grants. What implications do you guys feel this has for schools and students?
I think that students are going to have students may have more access to financial support to go to classes and take care of the bill for that. I also think that comes with a caveat, though, that they need to be intentional and know their purpose of why they're in school, because just because you're receiving a Pell Grant, that's potentially taking money out of another student's pocket that actually know their purpose and what they're trying to do. So I think it's a wonderful thing that more students will have access to financial support, but at the same time, all the students that may gonna get that access might not necessarily gonna put it to good use in the sense of wasting the resources that are provided to them.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Yes, you have more access. Yes, more students are going to be able to fill out the form and get, and get that funding. But I'm going to say what I'm going to say to the end. Festus, you got anything on that? The expansion of the Pell Grant being pushed out to approximately a little bit over 500,000 students are going to be getting more access to Pell Grants.
Yeah, again, I think it's just it's kind of better for everyone. I think the challenge becomes this. So let's, Pell Grant, the max Pell Grant used to be what, 5,600 or something like that, 6,400, somewhere in that range. And so, if your tuition is, $12,000, that's about half your tuition. So now you got to come up with, 6,000 for the remainder of the year or something like that. And so, that's great. So again, those students who are hardworking, who are focused, who are, they're doing a side job, they got a side hustle, they're, filling out for scholarships, they're gonna have more of a chance to get into school and to graduate. And that means the schools are gonna then in turn have more money because of more enrollment. Now the question becomes, if you got student support services, if you got any students with differentiated learning and things like that, where they're not able to take, that puts a strain on those systems on campus, right? And by having more students on campus, sometimes that might not be the best thing. And why do I say that? Okay, because I know that this is where the hate, come on, bring the hate letters.
Hate.
So they did research about college attrition. Let me break it down. College dropout, or those who do not succeed to the next level. And what they found was in that research, the schools that had stricter admissions policies had reduced attrition. So basically, if it was harder to get into college, you were more likely to graduate. So if you look at a school like, Harvard or Yale and one of those types of schools, their graduation rates are normally 70 some odd percent or higher. Whereas you look at a place like HEC and I'm not knocking HEC, love HEC, or any of the community colleges in the countries, some of them have graduation rates as low as 10%, 12%. And part of the reason they're that low is because some of them are open enrollment. And what has a tendency to happen is students transfer before they graduate. So that kind of dings it looks like a ding on the school, but they did their job. They got that base level of education, and then they went on to a state school or something like that. And so
hold on right there, Festus. It's only a ding if they transfer out of state. So if I go to HEC and I transfer to TSU, that's not a ding against HEC because I transferred to a university that's in state. But if I transfer out of state, that's a ding.
Okay, I got you. Cool. Let me ask a question on that point, because I know some of this has changed too. When that student transfers, do they count it just as a transfer, or do they count it as a graduation?
So it depends. So because what they're focusing on now is student success rate. And so the way they define student success is essentially what you're addressing is student completion. But so the goal is to transfer from the community college to whatever university. So were you talking about students transferring before they finish the 2 years at HCC? Or are you talking about they finish the 2 years, then they transfer?
Correct. I'm saying before they finish the 2 years.
Before. So before, if they, so for whatever reason, if they transfer to a university within the state, it's seen as a transfer, but it's not like a ding, because essentially that's what you want them to do.
Okay. Cool. I'm with you. I'm rocking with you.
All right.
Okay. So yeah. So again, with that being said, I think, this is something for students to consider. Where is their Pell Grant getting the most? Where's it going the farthest, if I would say. And so that's something to consider too, is that if you're getting Pell Grant money, is it better to, in addition to your degree you're looking at getting, get some type of certification? I would say 1,000%. If you could get a certification on your way to a degree, do it, because then that way you're maximizing those Pell Grant dollars. But that's my thoughts on it. And thanks, Crawford, for the hookup.
No, yeah, I also, because I like what you were saying, because I want to play devil's advocate, because you're giving me good information.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Olay. If there's one thing I love, it's something free. I'm talking free 99, un gratis. No shipping or handling fees, no gotcha fees, nothing like that. With that being said, if you're graduating soon or thinking about college or need a nudge or help to decide, then our free ebook, 10 Things to Think About Before Going to College, has a very balanced and open-minded way of presenting your next steps. It captures broad topics in a personal way by giving students an insightful, interactive, and reflective source of inspiration. It is very beneficial to be able to visualize some of the concepts after high school and apply them directly to you. We all know life, college, and career planning decision-making choices for students can be challenging, especially as they near the completion of high school. This book will provide you with a self-paced guide to your success beyond academics and into real life. Not only is it free, you can complete this book within a week. This will definitely prepare you for long-term success. To get your free copy, simply go to lys.com/students. I mentioned it was free, right? Well, if I didn't, it's free. Like, for real. Okay, back to the podcast.
So something that you touched on was the colleges that have more strict admission policies have higher graduation rates than the institutions that are open enrollment. And so I know we're talking about FAFSA, and what I was going to say is, to be honest with you, I kind of see the benefit of the 108 questions, because those students that go through those 108 questions and fill it out, they obviously want it at that point in time, versus, it's only 36 questions. Everybody can go and flood the gates to try to get the funds. And so similar to like open enrollment, okay, everybody gonna go to their school, but not everyone has discovered their purpose and why they're there. You have students who are just filling in seats just because it's just the next thing to do. And then those are the students that are contributing to the dropout rates of those institutions.
And it's funny, man, because when I was in the military, you get to basic and stuff, and it seems almost like they're trying to test people in that first week, meaning like they're trying to push you out, and you feel some kind of way about it. But in the long run, you start to think about it, and it's like, maybe some people do need to get pushed out. Maybe, and I'm not saying, people don't need to get an education, because see, that's somebody gonna hear this, they're gonna be like, Festus said people need to get pushed out of school. What I'm saying is, sometimes you need to get pushed into the right fit. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes it's that you're trying to follow the crowd, and that's not the right thing for you, and you need to get pushed into the right fit. So that denial letter, that that academic suspension, sometimes you need that so you can say, wait, you know what? Let me just go and go to trade school and get it over with in 6 months, versus trying to pursue something because somebody told you, or you just heard, they just said go to college, I'll figure it out. So yeah, there's a couple thoughts.
And then one more thing that you touched on that was important when you were talking about the like community college and students leaving. And one thing I wanted to talk about, because if I'm a student trying to get into college, but I can't get into a university who has more strict admission policies, and I go to a community college, let's say I go to a community college for the first year and I have a 4.0. So now if my goal is to go to Rice University or whatever university I'm trying to get into, now I have a 4.0 with some academics, and now I'm like really eligible to go to that university. That is like absolutely okay to do, because you're going in with a game plan. And many students are aware, or many people are aware of, that's a way to work the system, get into an open enrollment. And obviously you have to do good, perform really great. Now that boosts your academic history to be quite eligible to get into certain schools.
Absolutely, man. That's a powerful point. And on that point, thinking about the community colleges, I want to add a quick tidbit, man. This is really, really good. I know we're helping a lot of families in regards to this. We were very honored. Shout out to ALYS, the Family U conference that we did yesterday. We met a wonderful husband and wife who came, and they were talking about their background and the things that they want to implement in their child's lives, and something that a lot of first generation families deal with, or first generation students rather, let me say, deal with. And that is this thing of, whenever you're getting ready to do the FAFSA, I even hit on this a little bit, is like waiting for your parents to finish, to complete their own taxes, right? When you're 16, 17, 18, you're waiting on your parents to complete their taxes so you can do yours. And this young person, this parent that we were talking to, said that when they were in high school, Festus, you remember, that they couldn't do it because of certain situations in their family, right? They couldn't even get access to that. So a quick thing that I wanted to note here, this is just an aside, another one of the changes that happened with the FAFSA Simplification Act was the IRS Data Retrieval Tool, or DRT. Now, this is part of the time-saving simplification tools that they've added. It automatically transfers tax return information to the FAFSA form. Now, there are some privacy concerns in regards to applicants cannot see the data imported from the IRS to verify the accuracy. But the hope is that if you send it into IRS, that's the information that's going in for your FAFSA. Also, that financial aid information is not visible during the filing process for security reasons, and FAFSA data is actually protected under an act. So this is one of the things I think about for those families. Also, if you had an income tax return that was amended in some way, you may not be able to use that tool, right? So there's still some things that we have to think about here, all right? I just wanted to throw that out there. Now we're going to get to our last point, and this is a super, super important point. When we started Laddering Your Success, 52 to 55% of people who worked in a role that required a college degree, their degree did not match what they did. Currently, student loan debt is at 1.77 trillion. There are still many who don't get access. There are still many students who fall through the cracks. There are still many who don't find their purpose. So with all of these things that we're seeing, I want us to kind of jump in, just let's put the LYS spin on this. 10 years from now, are we still going to see a lot of the same problems that we have, where essentially you're expanding the number of kids who can go to college by increasing who gets access to Pell Grants? But guess what? They don't have an LYS in their community. So they still won't know their purpose. They still won't know their mission. They still won't know their values. They still won't know who their being is, about their values, their principles, their characteristics. They won't know about their knowing. They won't know about their resources and how to get access to them. And they won't know how to do. They won't know how to execute with excellence. And so what are our thoughts here? What's the bigger picture that's happening? Are we creating another student loan debt 2.0 because we've just forgiven so much? And are we now trying to recreate the cycle? Because one of the biggest things I've learned, and shout out to you, Festus, is like just how the economic system works and how sometimes things are done in order to create this system of debt, right? That makes, I hope my question.
No, 100%, 100%, because a lot of people don't realize that when you sign that on that dotted line for a loan, particularly, you're basically, what are you paying with? And when you sign for that loan, you're paying with your future effort. That's what interest is. It is your future. It's your future effort. So you're saying, hey, I'm going to give you a little piece of my future effort for what you're giving me now. Now, hopefully the trade-off is a clean investment in yourself, meaning because you increased your knowledge and because you increase your skill sets, you then can earn more money. So there's a differential there, right? Is that maybe you're 10% more productive than you would have been had you not gone to college or not gone to trade school or whatever the case is. So therefore you should increase your income. But you also have to look at it this way, is that, well, outside of that interest rate, what other incentives do they have for you to be successful? None. The incentives that you're looking for are your incentives. The fact that you could earn more money, the fact that you get a bigger house, the fact that you can get a faster car, better looking car, better clothes, whatever, those are your incentives. So the thing is, the school doesn't have an incentive in you having a better house, better car. They don't have that incentive. So their incentive is just in you coming and signing and paying that bill. And so you gotta look at it that way and say, okay, in order for this to be mutually beneficial, I'm going to this school because I understand that they offer this very specific thing that I need to get good in and that I'm passionate about. So this school has one of the best schools in engineering. So that's why I'm going to this school. Not because my friends went or because the cheerleaders are hot or, I watched, American Pie is old now, but I watched maybe American Pie 4 and I want to go to band camp or whatever it is. Just it's nonsense, some of it, you know what I'm saying? And so, you got to be able to really differentiate, why am I going here? And when I sign up for these student loans, again, they didn't do blanket forgiveness of student loans. They did forgive a ton of student loans, but those that were forgiven in most cases were people who've been paying for 15 years, 20 years, 10 years, so they weren't just like, oh, we just won't forgive everybody, and you got to keep in mind, those people probably paid double or triple the amount of loans in some cases. So, there's a lot that goes into this. And so great point, Olay.
I think that one thing to keep in mind when going to college and signing loans and things of that nature in which you guys are addressing is that knowing that all knowledge does not contribute to an increased income. All knowledge does not contribute to an increased income. And so we have to be mindful in the knowledge that we're seeking. So yes, get an education, but like Festus said, am I going to get an education to be around people socially? Or am I going to get an education and gain more knowledge so I can leverage that knowledge to now increase my worth and value?
And I'll just tag on to that one more time real quick. And you got to also keep this in mind, is who that value is for. Again, the value you're creating is for your future employer. One of the things that we wrote in the Laddering Success book is that everybody should understand business. Why? Because even if you don't own a business, you're going to work at a business. So it's better for you to understand that business's bottom line. And so when you're getting education, you have to understand the education that they need. If you're trying to go be a chef and you go study philosophy, that's not helpful to the restaurant, right? Now, if you study the philosophy of food and fine dining, and you say, hey, I'm going to increase the experience here at this restaurant so we could get more, money in, we could become a fine dining experience or whatever, a better dining experience, that then contributes. And so you got to think in those ways as you're getting your education, because ultimately you want to study and be passionate about whatever it is you're doing, because that's how you're going to eventually make more money anyway, and you got to also get other skills, negotiation skills, things like that. So
you guys just give me a wonderful idea. I'm going to open up a restaurant called This Is an Egg, and that's going to be a philosophy-based restaurant. It's going to be an empty building. I'm going to charge people like $1,000 to enter, and it's just going to be like tables, and we're just going to have, we're just going to think about why is this here? Why is that there? No, I'm just kidding. Beautiful. Oh man, this is who knew FAFSA could be so interesting? But we made it interesting. Thank God. Wonderful, man. I know that students, parents, families got something important that they can take when filling out the FAFSA, asking the right questions with counselors in their schools, making sure you make sure you stay connected with LYS, right? In regards to just changes happening to FAFSA. Hey, one of the things we mentioned, since the sibling, it's changing for siblings, you need scholarships. Guess what? LYS has a scholarship ebook designed with essays that have won, showing you what to put in an essay, showing you what to put on your application to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck as you're stepping to success. So in closing, got a couple of things I want you guys to think about. Make sure you prepare early for the FAFSA. Review the new questions, gather your financial documents, and understand the student aid index concept. Every bit of preparation can significantly improve your financial aid outcomes. Make sure you stay connected with Edu Steps, right, folks? Subscribe to our podcast for more valuable insights. Leave a review to help us reach more families, and share this episode with someone navigating the college application process. Your support empowers us to help more families make higher education more accessible. Invest in your future. Understanding and leveraging the new FAFSA changes is a crucial step in securing your educational future. Keep climbing that ladder to success. For more information on academic sources and things like that, please be sure to go to our website, get access to us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube. For the future doc, Jamar Crawford, that guy, Daniel Hill, he was there for a quick second. I mean, I'm not even sure if you guys saw it, but he was there for a quick second. My name is Olay signing off. Thank you so much for joining us on this latest episode of Edu Steps. Festus, give us with the phrase, please, my good sir.
Hey, listen, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no excuse for not getting an education. Listen, y'all heard it here. Somebody needs to hear this. Go and hit that share button. And if you like what you heard, hit the like button. And if you don't like what you heard, hit the like button anyway, because we need it. So we are going to see you on the next episode.